thank all of you for your participation, especially the organizers of this event, for the sincerity that went into putting it together. And I would like to extend a special thank you to my previous speakers, the representatives of the New Karta. It was rewarding and very inspiring to hear those words. And in order to conclude our event today, I want to just give a few brief messages regarding what it means for us to be advocates for justice in Palestine. Because there is a misconception that Palestine is an Arab cause, or that it is a Muslim cause. And it is a Muslim cause, but it is just as much a Christian cause as it is a Muslim cause. And it is just as much a Jewish cause as it is a Muslim cause. The rabbi said it much more eloquently than I ever could, but it gives me a great deal of pause to think that when the cancer of Zionism first began to spread throughout the world, the most eloquent and the most vocal opponents and the most effective opponents of Zionism were religious and God-fearing Jews. And they performed that service to God and to humanity effectively. And it's a tragedy for me that in many places and in many ways, and even in the holiest lands for Judaism, their voices are suppressed. So advocating for Palestine, whether a person be a Muslim or a Christian or a Jew, it is advocating for human dignity, and it is advocating for the dignity that was given humanity by God, and that cannot be taken away by any earthly power. And the fact that no earthly power can take away that dignity, it gives us supreme confidence and certainty that this is a cause that will triumph and that will achieve victory. Because we are not here to give strength to the cause of Palestine. We are here to derive strength from being connected to a position that is true. We derive strength and we connect to a cause of justice, and that cause of justice, it belongs to God and it belongs to all God-fearing people before it belongs to us. We join it, not that we strengthen it. The reason why it's important for us to remember that is because we should not ever think that we have a limited time frame or a small horizon in which we need to achieve results. We don't know when Palestine will be free. We don't know when all Palestinians, Jewish Palestinians, because those who are of the Jewish religion and are native to the Holy Land, they are Palestinians just as they are Jewish. And Christian Palestinians, as there are many, and Muslim Palestinians, and any other native inhabitants of the Holy Land, we don't know exactly when they will be free and when their occupation over all of historic Palestine and over all of the Holy Lands will end. What we do know is that that day will come to pass. What we hope is that when history is written, our names will also be among those who stood up for Palestine, who stood up for the cause of truth. Takbir! Allahu Akbar! Not just on one day, but in every day of our lives and through all of the actions of our lives. There are a few questions that are sometimes raised about why Palestine is so important. Sometimes people say, and this is very common Zionist propaganda, there are bigger tragedies where more people have died elsewhere. There are other governments that have killed a larger number of people than have died in Palestine. But let me explain to you why Palestine is central and why all people of conscience recognize its centrality. There is a difference between a tragedy and a travesty. In human terms, if 10,000 people die in a natural disaster, that is a far bigger tragedy than having one person tortured and murdered brutally for no reason. It is a bigger tragedy because there has been a larger amount of human suffering and there has been a larger amount of death. But that does not make it a bigger travesty. If there is a system that justifies the torture and murder of one person, if there is an international community that considers it okay to support and fund and justify the actions of that system, it might only be one death. It might only be one person, but it is a bigger travesty. And that is why Palestine is not about how many individuals the Zionists have imprisoned, though there are many. It is not about how many individual families have been broken up and brutalized, though there are many. It is not about how many successive generations of children have been denied their childhood, have been denied their education, have been denied their very lives and the loving care and company of their parents, though there are many. But it is about how the conscience of humanity is being systematically attacked. It is about how the identity of God's revealed religion and the prophets and the patriarchs is being systematically abused. It is about how genocide is being justified, how an imperialistic and colonialist enterprise is being given a place of honor in many international and even academic institutions. That is a travesty even before it is a tragedy, though it is a great tragedy as well. Takbir.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
There are as many ways of advocating for Palestine as there are ways for us to connect to our conscience. Prayer is one of the most effective and meaningful ways to advocate for Palestine. Rallies are one way, but one thing that every human being must commit to is that we must make sure that it is not just part of our day or part of our identity where we consider it a duty to stand up for justice. In whatever way you can connect to those who are advocating for this cause, in whatever way you can help to give a voice to the Palestinians, because throughout the world, in international organizations, and unfortunately, even sometimes when there are groups that are advocating for Palestine, the one group that has the smallest voice is the Palestinians themselves. In whatever way you can advocate to give a voice to the voiceless, to the oppressed, to the dispossessed, in whatever way you can raise awareness, and in whatever way you can use your purchasing power and your power as a citizen and as a consumer to make sure that genocide is not going to be justified in your name, that it's not going to be perpetrated on your dime. That is how we can advocate, and we must advocate for Palestine. This is not a culmination of our efforts, but it is a focal point for us to rechannel and direct and then to augment our efforts, to increase them. Because as God has promised, and as religious scriptures that have been revealed by God have recorded from the very first moment that God sent a covenant to humanity, the cause of justice will triumph. Truth will triumph. We as human beings need to make sure that we will be part of that triumph, not be among those who will stand in its way. With that, I will conclude with a prayer. And that prayer is to God Almighty, that all of those who have suffered in Palestine, and by that I mean members of all religions, I mean members of all ethnicities and all races, members of the human family, men and women, the old and the young, all of those who have suffered. O God, recompense them in a way that only you know how. Those who have died, then give them peace to their souls. And those who are alive, allow them to witness the establishment of truth and justice in their lands and throughout the world. O God, all of those who advocate sincerely for Palestine, increase their sincerity, increase their consistency and their constancy, and inspire us to be more effective in our work, so that we're not just fulfilling a duty or performing a formality, but we are actually taking effective steps. Oh God, all of those who stand here advocating for justice, let us be representatives and guide us to be representatives of justice throughout our lives, in our personal interactions, in our interpersonal reactions, and whenever we are confronted with an issue of justice anywhere in the world. For Muslims, this is the month of fasting, the sacred month of Ramadan. And that is a time for us to practice self-sacrifice, to practice empathy with those who are deprived. Those of us who are fasting and those of us who are not fasting but still honor the worship of Ramadan, oh God, grant all of us the ability to maintain that spirit of sacrifice and that spirit of empathy throughout our lives. Remember, Palestine is not a religious issue. It is not a sectarian issue, because it is not limited to a religion or it is not limited to a sect. But members of every religion derive inspiration from their religion in order to be effective witnesses to a cause of justice. O God, members of all religions who are gathered here, and all of those who believe in spirituality and believe in the principle of justice, grant us constancy in the path of justice and in our spiritual paths. And guide our hearts, because we can only do that effectively with the fear of God and with divine inspiration, not left to our own devices. Takbir.